Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Mancini, also known as BMF Mancini on the Cacti Group. In this video, we are going over the brand new NetFlow plugin called Flowview for Cacti. Flowview version 4.8, to be exact, is about to be released, and it comes with a plethora of new features that I'd like to go over. We'll go over some other details in this video. Okay, so first thing that I would like to go over is some of the new features. So the first one is we're migrating from Adobe Flash to JavaScript graphic. We've introduced more charting abilities and analysis capabilities. We have support from MariaDB Maxscale for horizontal scalability, which is very exciting. Support for NetFlow version 5, version 9 IP fix as well. We have built a new parallel database query algorithm that has a huge performance increase, especially for reads. If your servers have NVMe drives with many CPU cores, you can go through gigabits of data per second. And the beauty of it is that we cache some of these queries so that the next time you're only having to query data from a specific database partition. We partition hourly for this additional performance increase, and you'll see some of the other options later. We're also leveraging the ARIA storage engine over NODB. ARIA is about 5 times faster in this application than NODB. Of course, NODB being faster than MySAM. Excited to dig in with this. Some of the other topics we'll cover. We'll go over how to install this plugin, some of the considerations you should take when setting this up, go over the UI, collect some data, and we'll go over what that Maxscale setup may look like. So let's get started. So first thing we'll do is install the plugin. Okay, so you go over to github.com, go into the Cacti section, and the plugin is the plugin Flowview. Okay. So I have a fresh Cacti install here. So we will go over to our Cacti install. And like typical Cacti plugins, we'll go over to our Cacti installation folder in under plugins. And I could just do a git clone, right? And then ensure that you're removing the plugin prefix, so the plugin underscore Flowview should just be Flowview instead. Oh, evidently don't have git, so I'll install git. Okay, and we will clone into Flowview. Okay, so we will change the permissions of this folder to the web server user. So I'm using Debian in this case, so it should be www data. Okay, and now before we go ahead and install it in the Cacti UI, there's a couple of setup things that we have to do at the OS level. So let me clear this. Okay, so the first thing we'll have to do is copy over a file called config.php, and we will change that to config.php. And let's open up that file now and see what we have inside. So by default, the the Flowview plugin will install its database tables into the Cacti database. So if you have a very small setup, maybe 1 or 2 routers, um, and you're collecting some NetFlow data, this may be the option for you. But as you scale out and you have more devices, but there's some considerations here. One being that this database will get very large. So if something goes wrong and you need to restore your database, or I should actually take a step back and even backing up your database, these things take a lot longer because these databases become huge. Where a typical Cacti database with like 100 devices could be a few hundred megabytes, Flowview can get easily into the gigabytes. So this is where you have to make a decision. Are you okay with a longer backup and restore time? Or we give you the option to have a dedicated database for Flowview data. So in this demo, for this install, I'll just have the Cacti, I'll install it to Cacti directory. We'll go over to another system that has populated with data, and I'll show you what that looks like, because we'll get into some exciting things like how this will look like with Maxscale. Okay, so after you've gone ahead and rename the file config, you can just simply save that if you're using the Cacti database. If not, you can then change the credentials and the host name here, and you would set this to false. So you would just write false and then save. Okay. Next thing we'll have to do is set up the systemd service. So there's a folder here called service, and there is the flow capture.service. Okay, so before we go ahead and do anything else, go into the flow capture.service. If you're using CentOS, Rockkeep, or a Red Hat type distribution, by default here, you may not have to do anything because we have Apache here as the service user. But since I'm using Debian, I will do www-data as the user because that's the web server user. Okay, I don't have to change anything else. I will then move the flow capture.service to the systemd directory and then into the system folder, and then reload the systemd daemon. Let's start the flow capture service. And you also want to enable the flow capture service. That way, when there's a system restart, that service will start up with the other services. And let's check out the status. So we see that it's actively running. Okay. So now we can go over to the Cacti GUI. If I refresh this page, you'll see Flowview. So let's click the icon to install it, and we'll enable it now. So you'll see that there is a Flowview tab that's open. Of course, there'll be no data in it right now. What we'll want to do is now configure it. So there's some basic configurations that will need to be done. The first one we'll have to do is configure a listener. So a listener essentially is a way that we open up a port, a UDP port, that the NetFlow data can be sent to Cacti. So the default port 2055, we do have a way to limit who can send Flowview data to this port. So by default, anyone can send it, or you can lock it down by host or by CIDR. So I'll just have it for anyone right now. You can make a name. So say the name is main and enable it right now. Okay. So some considerations, of course, if you have one or two devices, having one single port is just fine. If you have hundreds of devices, then you have to worry about UDP backlog and things like that. So you may have to create more listeners on more ports, which can easily be done. So I can click the plus, change this ports to say 2056, and add another listener to split how many devices are going to each one of these ports. And then there's a concept that will create filters. Okay, so you can create a filter based off of what data you're interested in. So say you're interested in uh, source destination IP that you want. So if I go source dest IP as a name, what you want the filter to apply to in terms of listener. So main or all, since I only have one. Flow template IDs. So now in Flowview, in NetFlow version 9 and above, there's a concept of templates. Those are device specific. So Cisco will have their own. FortiGate, for example, may have its own. So if you want to lock it down to something particular like that, you definitely can. Okay, and now I can come down to how I want to charge my data. Let's say I want bar charts, and I also want a panel for table, bytes, packet. I can definitely do that. And then obviously we can filter down by preference. So if you're interested in everything, you click all, and then you can add additional filters for source IP, source port, destination IP, and so on. And then click create, and we've created our filter. Okay, and then there's schedules for reports. So I can create a schedule report, name it report name. Let's say report one based off of this filter. And how often do I want? I say I want it every day, and I can have it sent to an email. So I'll just say 123@abc.com, right? And what kind of format do we want? So there's some basic formats that are here. I'll just stick with the standard one. You can, if you have a notification list configured in Cacti, you can leverage that here. And then we'll hit create there. Okay. So the next one, and this will not be populated yet, but we'll go over to the populated system so you will be able to see. But in Flowview 4.8, we've introduced integrations with various internet registry databases. So there's RADB, for example. You're able to look at AS sets, AS blocks. There is DNS lookup right from the DNS cache. There's a lot of data to help network engineers and NOCs and security folks within this plugin. So we'll see that in a moment. But before we do, I want to go over some of the settings that are introduced in the settings panel for Flowview. We have host name resolution, so we can resolve the IPs to host name. You can use local DNS, or if you don't want it at all, you can definitely disable that. We have a lookup with Aaron. So when you see an IP and you want to see who you want the who is info, we can definitely dip into a who is RADB or you can change it to Aaron or whichever service you would like. We do require the who is binary. And so right now you'll see that I actually don't have it installed because it's a fresh install, but you would definitely need that in order for all that to work. There's the default search filter if you like. So if you have more, you can, if you would have more options. Coming down again, as I mentioned before, we were talking about storage engines and partitioning. Again, using the Araya storage engine by default allows this plugin to perform very well. As I mentioned before, we're able to process gigabytes of data within within mere seconds with highly performant systems, NVMe, multiple cores, and that's partially thanks to the Araya storage engine that is built into MariaDB. By default, we have hourly partitions that allows us to be able to query subset of data on the next occurrence of that data being selected because we are caching the data so it's much quicker the next time. And with hourly partitions, there's less data that needs to be looked at the next time around. Then there's the ability to have the max concurrent threads for the parallel queries. So by default, it's 4, but you can, depending on how many CPU cores you have, can go all the way up to 20. And don't necessarily always have to have it to the max. And it all depends on if you're happy with the performance. And as you scale out more devices, more data, you may have to adjust this as you go. And then there is the Maxscale sharding that helps with read-write splitting for even more performance. Again, with that whole horizontal scale out, that option is off by default, but you would enable it here if you're leveraging MariaDB Maxscale. And then we would say, what is your read-write split port? And you would list it here. Okay. That's it for the settings. Let's go over to a system that has some data already being collected so we can see what reports look like. Okay. So on this system, I have that filter that we talked about set up for source and destination IP. And we're able to see the types of charts and data we want. If you're in this view and you want to see something else, you can definitely change that. So I can, if I want to see based on my IP protocol, I can switch that over. You're only really going to see on a typical setup, TCP or UDP, but I'm able to see those flows and you'll see how much data or how fast this data will show up. And this is what this lab setup has SSD drives, but with NVMe drives, it's even more performing. So again, I could chart many more types of data that you may be interested in, even AS numbers, which is very handy for ISPs and things like that. Going back to that database table that we showed here under databases. So these are the various IIRs and data sets from the Flowview, from the NetFlow data that flows into Flowview. We'll see various AS blocks. Now, this data gets populated by scheduled jobs. It is downloaded from the various data sources. And again, we're able to have ability to search for AS numbers and things like that. So we've made it so that this system is integrated with as much detail as possible so that many teams can use it, not just network engineers. Security engineers can benefit from this, or performance management and planning persons can definitely use this. So that is, that's it for that, right? It's very much populated with a lot of the data that they would need. So again, we'll talk about how Maxscale would look for Flowview here. So I have a Maxscale setup is actually what this is running off of. So Maxscale, I have a read write split, right? So that means that write operations go to Maxscale on one server and read operations go to another server. Again, helping balance out that load and it off with Maxscale. We're also getting the ability for failover and things like that, of course, but to expand horizontally or add more servers, that is, Maxscale makes it easy. There is, if Maxscale is something that you're looking to leverage, within the Flowview plugin folder, there is a Maxscale base configuration for Maxscale. I would say a sample configuration more than a base that you can definitely use, or you can use the Maxscale GUI and make your own or change this as you need to. So that's it for the updates and for Flowview. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. And we're really excited to release this. So any feedback would be great. So thanks for watching.